Welcome to Behind the Paranormal with Paul and Ben Eno.
When it comes to the paranormal, are ghosts and UFOs just the tips of a very big iceberg? Where are we when it comes to paranormal research? What are people actually tangling with when they hunt ghosts, quote unquote?
Greetings and welcome to the 593rd edition of Behind the Paranormal with Paul and Ben Eno. I am Ben, and those loaded questions came from my co-host and partner in the paranormal, my dad. And this evening we bring you two dear friends who are much more familiar with the everyday world of ghost hunting than we are, and we welcome your calls this evening. The numbers are 800-449-1240, or from anywhere in the U.S. or Canada, and then 401-766-1240, that is for everyone who is calling locally. Also, we will monitor emails, paul@behindtheparanormal.com for emails. Don't forget about our Facebook page.
And we welcome in studio, which is always a treat for us, Willy Hassel and Lynn Nickerson, and we'll let them provide their own bios. We've never done that before, so you're really special, all right? So, Lynn,
so we're on?
Yes, we're on. And Lynn, if you'd care to tell us about yourself.
Yes, well, both Willy and I together, we're the team who operates Spirit Chasers Paranormal, as well as Spirit Radio, the Paranormal Experience. And Willy's been doing this for about 5 years. I've been doing it for about 2, and that's into investigating ghosts. And the radio show we've done for a year and a half, a year and 8 months. And before that, I've always had an interest in the paranormal, a broad spectrum of stuff. And I've been writing down I've started a book writing down my little episodes and incidences.
Great, we can talk about that as we go. Willy.
Yeah.
Okay, well, first, Paul and Ben, I want to thank you very much for inviting us down here tonight.
Oh, thanks for coming down here.
Pleasure.
Yes,
it's great to be here.
Yeah, all the way down from
I
Portsmouth.
drove.
All the way down from
Maine. Yeah.
So you had it easy, Willy.
I know it. Like Lynn said, we are Spirit Chasers Paranormal out of Hampton, New Hampshire. It's just a small group. It's myself, Lynn, my brother Jim, and my niece Laura, the core group at the moment. And it's been going for about 5 years now, I guess. And my beginnings in the paranormal was no exciting story by any means. I just always kind of wondered, are there really ghosts or not? And never really knew. Didn't think too much about it. And then, a few years ago, like everybody else, I was watching all the programs. I won't mention them. I said to my brother one night, I want to find out for myself. So I took him, dragging and screaming, off to a local cemetery, and I said, we're going to go find a ghost. And it just kind of developed from there. A couple of friends wanted to join in, and we ended up forming Spirit Chasers Paranormal. And since then, the lineup has changed a little bit. The other two have left, and now we have Lynn and my niece Laura.
The different headliners.
Well,
this is unusual for us. We very, very rarely have representatives of any ghost hunting groups on the show, but you have become very special friends over the last couple of years.
Well, we appreciate
as a matter of fact,
that.
I believe Lynn and I are cousins.
That's
we
right,
really
I
trace
think we
that
are.
family tree, because if you're Nickerson and you're from the Cape or Nova Scotia, then we're cousins.
I'm sure we are.
No question. So we don't often get to ask questions of this kind on this show. So let's start with, again, you began to tell how you got started, and I'm trying to put this delicately because Ben is the only one to whom no longer spring chickens doesn't really apply anymore, okay? The three of us are, I suppose, roughly of the same vintage, more or less. And one thinks of this as an activity or a hobby, whatever you want to call it, for younger people. Do you find that older people also are getting into this kind of paranormal research, seat-of-the-pants kind of interest and this sort of thing?
I think all ages, really.
I think it's across the board.
In investigations, I've gone to some public investigations. Not, I know you're not going to get any real evidence there, but it's amusing. And there are people of all ages, from teenagers to people our age.
I think people are becoming more psychically aware, and people are really interested. They're increasing their awareness, so I think it's across the board.
Or perhaps even it's more of a societal thing where
that too?
It's more like our mortality is constantly being challenged, so why not wonder about what's going to happen afterwards?
That's true.
Yeah.
Well, that's the thing. People sometimes ask me, said, you got thrown out of the seminary for this and all this business, and that was a long story. But, you gave up all this stuff. You could have been helping people, for this. And I said, well, this is the most important question you will ever face. When you're on your deathbed, what you had for dinner the day before, your bank accounts, and it was not going to matter. Ultimate questions will matter. And that's what we're all trying to find out. Maybe we're blundering through it.
We all secretly want to know, yes.
Maybe we bring up more questions than we answer, but we're doing it. We're explorers. Ben and I say we're cosmic sojourners. That's the title of our book.
Well put, yeah.
That's a good way of putting it,
yeah.
And you said that they said, well, you could be helping people. Well, I think we are helping people.
Exactly.
When somebody calls in a group, we're being bothered by, something's going on in the house. Can you help us? And if you can make them feel better in the end, and
or even discover, what it is.
And, maybe you might find out that there's nothing going on. It's just a very high electromagnetic field. Is just, giving you. Feelings and, so you are actually helping people.
Yeah. Although there is an underside to that, and I know you agree, that there are some groups who appoint themselves as counselors to families, which really makes me cringe. And I'm just waiting for the lawsuits, malpractice kind of thing, And I think the one thing that bothers us about the field is that so many people are appointing themselves because they've read a few books. And, in your case, the four of us have been kind of learning from each other, I think, in the last few years.
It's nice to share.
And you have a certain maturity where some people don't. And they're considered experts because they have an article about them in the newspaper, and they're 20 years old and, don't know anything.
And they have really cool T-shirts.
And they have very cool T-shirts.
I don't understand the T-shirts thing.
Well, I have to admit, we have T-shirts.
It's the gang-type mentality, the club mentality. That's what it is. You feel like you're part of a club.
But I don't like wearing it.
You can always wear something over it.
I find it very uncomfortable.
We're not on CBS
I don't
anymore.
I don't take very well to polyester. It's not
right.
Yeah,
but nevertheless, a lot of people do, and you have, I don't like to criticize others.
No, I think that some people are seriously interested in all aspects of the paranormal. The rest of them, there is that faction. They're out there, they're thrill seekers. Yeah. They're not necessarily looking for knowledge. They're out there to have fun and to get creeped out. And those types of people don't take the situation seriously. They should be protecting themselves. Mm-hmm. They should be aware of what they could possibly get into, because there could be some serious repercussions from their actions.
So what is your suggestion for someone who simply can't stay away from this field?
Well, I think people have to be serious about educating themselves, knowing what they're going to get into. Because there is negativity out there that they could run into. They should start reading a lot of books. And if they're going to go to a location like that, I would, first of all, warn against not using a Ouija board. Maybe just be armed with your own psychic abilities, and maybe take a K2 meter and a recorder. But I think you also have to do some kind of protection ceremony, some sort of blessing, prayers, something like that. They have to take precautions. It's not a joke. There's a lot out there that is unanswered that we don't know about.
Either.
What was that?
It's not like butterfly collecting either.
No, it's not.
Willie, how would you...
since your reaction there, Paul, I have to ask you. Lynn mentioned Ouija boards, and you said... I take it you're very much against Ouija boards?
Oh, very much. One of the first things I ran into in the 1970s was kids using Ouija boards and getting into trouble because of it. No amount of protection. I don't think it is really going to be a tremendous defense. In recent decades, I suppose the conclusion that I've come to about Ouija boards is that what you're doing is you're messing around with space-time, and you're using... Suppose you want to meet... This is the analogy I always use. Suppose you want to meet your next-door neighbor. Somebody just moved in. You go over and you kind of wait outside when they're in the yard, and you go say hello. You don't take a bulldozer and knock down their front wall, right?
I just wanted you to notice me.
That's what a Ouija board kind of does. And we have a lot of people who contact us. I've used Ouija boards for years, never had any problem. Well, you can stand in the middle of Interstate 95, and maybe you'll get hit, maybe you won't.
Yeah.
But is it
It's bound
is
to
it
happen.
intelligent or sensible or prudent to take that chance?
But does it really have anything to do with the board, which is just
I will
cardboard and a piece of plastic?
Well, I mean, symbols mean a lot of things,
Yeah.
and we as a civilization, we can put a lot of power in things. It's like if somebody believes in voodoo and you don't. Say you did believe in voodoo and someone put a curse on you, of course you'd believe that there's a curse, and there might even actually be a curse. Belief is a very powerful thing.
Sure,
It
right,
is.
exactly. And
He's talking about the mechanics, though,
Yeah.
of...
Oh,
mean,
yeah.
what is
Willie's getting at?
what is really the difference between going into a location and taking a Ouija board to you're basically trying to communicate with spirits, right? Or taking a recorder and trying to get EVP.
I've got to
What
say,
is
Willie,
really
it is
the
not the
difference?
same thing. The Ouija board is much more of a conduit. I can't tell you. It just seems to open up portals that need to be closed. And granted, this may be a form of communication, and it may be a form of a portal, but the Ouija board is just very dangerous.
Well, let me just cast a little bit of my perspective, our perspective on that. You're right, and you bring up a very interesting point, Willie. Is it or is it the cross, say, that really chases away the quote-unquote demon, or is it the Ouija board, the material thing that actually creates the conduit? And that's really a question. What I think really happens with anything that is positive or negative, any instrument, and I've seen teddy bears protect little children because they believed in it. And Ben is right. Faith is very powerful.
Mm-hmm.
I think what you're doing is tapping into something that can open or prompt something in you to open the power of your own mind and consciousness for either good or ill. Okay, that's the way I look at it. Holy water too. That especially for some reason, believe it or not,
Is odious?
is quite powerful. I found because what's happening. It's blessed, at least in the Orthodox Church and some of the others. The whole bunch of people stands around and puts positive energy into this. And what is water? Hydrogen and oxygen. The hydrogen, the basic building
Yeah, the
blocks of
crystalline
universe.
structure of the water has changed. There is such a thing as, if water is polluted, it changes the crystalline
That's
structure
right.
of it.
That's right.
So, I really believe that blessed water is very powerful.
That's
it's
what
in
we
its
find
pure
anyway.
form. Yeah.
I just want to clear up one thing here. I'm not being a proponent of Ouija boards. I've actually never really even used one myself.
I know.
But I just, it's
I know you don't see the
the way
difference.
the way I look at it, it's just a piece of cardboard and a
Yeah.
piece of plastic, and it's your belief or what you think. Why couldn't you just take that water bottle over there and put it on the table and accomplish the same thing if that's what you believe?
You possibly could. Let me give you an example of what you've never used a Ouija board.
Maybe twice, just for a few minutes. and
Okay.
I didn't get anything with it.
When I was a kid, my friend, I was in 7th grade, he was in 6th grade, back in the old country, East Hartford, Connecticut, right? He got one for his birthday. And so we're a couple of dumb kids. We're sitting there just doing it. It was a fall afternoon. And we asked it these different questions. And for anyone who doesn't know how this generally works, it was the Milton Bradley variety. I've been after them for 40 years to get, like they're going to listen to me, right? So the plastic thing with the fingers, and it seems to move around on its own, and there are letters and numbers, and it spells stuff out and tells you numbers.
Yep.
So eventually we asked when we were going to die.
Oh.
And it told him that he was going to die in 1986. And he did. This is in 1960 something, 66 or 67. He died in 1986 in a diving accident here in Rhode Island in Narragansett Bay.
I remember you mentioning that.
And it still says I have like another couple of years, but, not that I believe it now, but something was messing with space-time. Not messing with it, but had some sort of insight.
It was
parasites
operative.
do that.
Yes.
They're able to that the kind of living things these are is that they're able to reach into different worlds in our experience, and where times may be different or whatever. And maybe it was a coincidence, but
I think Willie's point, he's arguing that anything you use is a conduit, but I
can be
feel
sure.
personally that the Ouija board is probably the most powerful and the most dangerous.
In my opinion, I agree.
You agree?
We could be wrong, but not from what I've seen.
I'm obviously not saying I'm any expert
You're just
on it.
you're just playing devil's advocate. I know.
Yeah, no,
It's just my way of looking at it. I think it's your belief and what you in your mind, what you think.
Yeah.
You're going to.
You're lacking
accomplish,
experience. That's why you say that.
I'd like to be a fly on the wall in your car on the way back to Kittery this evening. What are you talking about? So now you mentioned, Willie, EVPs, or electronic voice phenomena, which are recordings that are captured that people believe generally are quote-unquote spirit voices, although I'm not sure of the whole spirit thing. I'm comfortable with it. I think there's more to it, but who knows? What the heck do I know? And we're prepared, I guess, to play one or two of these.
Well, we were, but we aren't now. Okay.
We aren't? Why?
Oh, no.
Let's plug that in real quick.
Oh, no,
Okay.
I unplugged it because I got to
Oh, no, that makes sense.
cue it first.
Oh, well, then we can do that after the break.
Yeah, do that.
Okay, good.
So
Yeah.
we'll put that off. Okay.
All right, we will, but why don't we, why don't you fill us in on the case in which you garnered these?
Yeah, okay, sure. Well, I mean, as far as EVPs themselves, what exactly are they? I can't explain them. I mean, on a recorder, whether it be, digital or analog, it's not a radio. So you're not picking up radio from anywhere.
Well, it depends who you talk to. There are people who say
I
it's an AM radio
suppose
signal.
I suppose
I don't know.
some people
Ben can
would
tell
say
you.
that, but
Yeah.
I mean, I can't find any explanation for it. And when you get direct responses to questions,
Yeah, that's
I mean, how can you
cinches
just
it.
explain that away?
Yeah.
I
No,
mean,
that's
one of the new things now they have is the what do you call them?
The ghost boxes?
That goes through the AM or FM radio signal.
Yeah.
I mean, those, to me, that's...
I don't trust
I
it.
have one, but, as far as I'm concerned, it's junk.
Yeah. I've been meaning to do more
because
tests
that is, you are picking up radio.
Well, gimmicks.
radio
There's a lot of,
signals,
it's all about butts. There's a lot of interest out there. And, people
gimmicks,
buy anything.
yeah.
Well, the fun thing about AM signals is you can pick up AM signals anywhere because the AM transmissions can bounce off the ionosphere and just pop up anywhere. Like, for example, here at ON, we had somebody in Finland pick us up.
Really?
Like,
yeah. Our
In the
promo,
evening?
as a matter of fact.
Yeah, it was our promo, actually.
Lapland, so it was northern Scandinavia.
Yeah,
They had like
Was
100
that
feet of wire spread through the trees. They had nothing else to do except watch the reindeer. So they
Jeez.
did that.
A ham operator, is that who picked it up?
Yeah, I guess when they just have nothing to do in their really long winters, they just put up these giant antennas and just see what they see what they can pick up, pretty much.
Yeah.
And then they usually get in contact with like the owner of the station or whatever, and say, hey, we picked you guys up. So AM frequencies, they can go ridiculously far. So I wouldn't be surprised if some of the stuff, not all, because my jury's kind of out on the whole EVP thing because I'm still trying to figure out a mechanism by which the voices even come across.
Well, you're officially a sound engineer now that you graduated.
Technically, yes.
Yeah.
So officially, I am. On paper, at least.
So yeah, I mean, that's the big question. How can a whatever you want to call it, a ghost, a spirit, whatever, that doesn't have any physical form or voice box, how could they? Yeah, I understand that. But yeah, as being an audio engineer, what is your theory on a recorder picking up?
Well, I don't know. I'm still trying to figure out how. I've had many theories throughout this time. One of them was I think it's all going to just go back to the multiverse theory, in which the two worlds happen to be in one place at the same time. So then you would be able to hear something like that. But the thing is, it's interesting that most of them come across as whispers. Because you need something to what's the word, vibrate the air molecules. So I want to figure out what vibrates the air molecules to create this kind of voice coming through. Which it could be electromagnetics. That's another thing that's going on in my head.
It could be, because I'm thinking atmospheric. So it's got to have something to affect.
Yeah.
To affect. And result.
It's not just voices, though. I mean, it can be other noises like
that's
door
true.
slamming and footsteps.
But
I have one here. It's very clear footsteps.
Oh, well, listen, I'll look forward to that after the break.
But would you get the same thing in a vacuum?
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah.
Who knows? There's a lot of experiments I want to try, but the problem is it's like you can't replicate this stuff, which is mostly the problem with this field of study. Is it's extremely hard to replicate it. So the scientific method doesn't exactly fit.
Yeah.
Isn't there a principle whereby, because I know this happened several times and well attested, that vibrations of sound hang in the atmosphere for very long periods, and there were people on their TVs in England picking up broadcasts from the Queen Mary like 40 years after World War II.
that would be. You know what? I'm not really sure. I know that's true, but I can't remember how it happened.
Yeah. It's just that stuff But if you had equipment sensitive enough, you could pick up George Washington addressing his troops or something like that, or Gautama the Buddha.
Who's not to say that it's a ghostly form of it?
Well, perhaps.
You're thinking of it being like in this time and space, just a continuation?
Well, perhaps. I mean, as Ben says, nobody really knows.
Wouldn't that come under the heading of a time slip?
Perhaps.
It could.
Picking up something from way back like that.
But again, if it's just a vibration hanging in the atmosphere in our time stream, world, whatever, that would be just undiscovered science, perhaps. Yeah. According to our own laws of physics. And one of the points of the multiverse theory, as most people look at it, is that you probably have very different physical laws in other parallel worlds. Hence the idea that an ancestor who's still alive there might know about you, maybe be able to help, and is not a ghost or anything of the kind, is a perfectly physical person, is just very aware. If you want to say higher awareness, we throw that term around all the time. Maybe that's what higher awareness is. Helping ourselves across the boundaries of worlds, versions of ourselves who are more alive or more aware. It's all us.
I read a book
Maybe.
by Timothy Good, and he was talking to an extraterrestrial.
Timothy Good, great UFO author, especially.
Yes, he really is. And he was being told that they have 12 senses. We have 5. Some of us have 6. They have 12. And I don't remember which species it was.
Yeah.
But that brings us to this subject, being able to understand these different universes.
Sure. And that's difficult.
Different senses for different dimensions and vibrations.
All you can really do. And I think that when I had a wonderful publicist years ago who was determined to turn me into a psychic, and that's really not that's not what I do. Right. However, I gave it a shot, and so I used the multiverse idea to go where I was or am this particular person in some other point in space-time and this kind of thing, whether it be past or future, whatever, where I established an identity with whatever person I was talking, and I couldn't handle it. I had their memories, I had their imagination, I had their physical feelings. I couldn't do it. It was too intimate. I couldn't do it. So I said, "You're going to have to find me someone." And we went back to promoting my books and doing. And plus, I try to be. Ben is more the feeling kind of guy. I'm trying to be more the scholarly.
I had too many feelings.
Whatever, you're more the empath kind of thing. So I couldn't handle it. So maybe when people are doing that kind of thing, mediumistic or psychic activities, they have no idea that they're really going where they are, this person or animal or alien or whatever.
Were you meditating? Is that what was happening?
That's how I would often do that, yeah.
So you were really becoming empathic, weren't you?
Well, yeah, my contacts, quote unquote, with other entities in the multiverse, whom I do not consider, I don't think I've ever run into one as actually a non-corporeal being. That's how we would interpret it, because we would say, with our limited paradigm, what else could it be?
Yeah.
Right? I encountered a medium who was, when I was working in a psychiatric hospital in Augsburg, New York, as a student and as a seminary student. She wasn't a psychiatric patient, fortunately, but she was, it was a state hospital, so people, older people with injuries would be in there. And I said, she said, "Oh, you're very psychic." She said, there's someone in this hallway who's waiting for his wife, and he's going to take her home, waiting for his wife to die. And the whole staff said the place was haunted, that hallway. So push comes to shove, and I've mentioned this on the air before. I got to the point where I went into the chapel to meditate, and they figured, well, he's a seminary student, he's going to hang out in the chapel,
Sure,
right?
sure.
So I got away with that, and it turns out there was a man waiting, but he was waiting across the river in Prescott, Ontario, at the railroad station in another parallel time stream, very similar, but where they had a higher awareness, and they often would visit with
How
neighbors.
did you determine that, Paul?
He told me.
He told you?
Yeah. And his wife was going to come on the train. He was going to take her home. But somehow the spatial arrangement was such that he was kind of there.
Wow.
The geography of that world was a little bit different, and that's how that was happening. It was an intersect.
That is amazing.
That's what I got from it.
That is amazing.
And we're sitting around thinking, well, you got a dead guy waiting for somebody else. Because what else could it be? We don't look at it this other way.
No.
So unless I was really wrong, that's happened a number of times with and sometimes they don't speak English. Wow. And you have language barriers.
Yeah.
And I had to speak I had to at one point work out a very strange form of Latin to speak with this bear-like. I mean, this goes on.
A bear-like entity.
And on. Yeah. Well, once you have this kind of awareness, and I think it's accurate. I don't know. And you're supposed to be the guest, not me. So why am I doing all the talk? Are we ready for our break?
Sure.
Almost.
Okay, very good. You're listening to Behind the Paranormal with Paul and Ben Eno on WOON 1240 AM, New England's beautiful Blackstone River Valley, on a lovely day with our great guests, Lynn Nickerson and Willy Hassel. We'll be right back.
ON Radio. The French Heritage Festival and Soiree is coming on Saturday, September 12th at River Island Park here in Woonsocket. Stay tuned to ON Radio throughout the summer for details.
You can depend on us for public service. ON Radio. ON Radio. ON Worldwide.
Hello, this is Manny Brando, reminding you that my show is on ON every Sunday morning at 8 a.m.
You forgot about me.
What about you?
Virginia Brando, your co-host.
You and I are going to have a talk.
Again?
ON Radio. ON Worldwide.
The third French Heritage Festival and Soiree is coming on Saturday, September 12th at River Island Park here in Woonsocket. Stay tuned to ON Radio throughout the summer for details.
You can depend on us for public service. ON Radio. It's the worldwide sound of ON Radio.
And we're back. We'll talk about our charities at the end of the show instead of in the middle, because we have two wonderful guests in studio. A real treat for us. We have Willy Hassel and Lynn Nickerson of Spirit Chasers Paranormal from Hampton, New Hampshire. Radio hosts, Portsmouth, New Hampshire, WSCA FM.
Yes.
Right? And just a couple of great folks, and we're going to see if we can hook up some of the electronic voice phenomena that they brought with them in order to find out what it sounds like and the cases that were involved. And we've been talking about that in the early part of the show, the possible explanations for these things. They're probably not as simple as most people think. So, are we ready?
Yeah, well, you want to go ahead and
set it
tell
up?
what the
Give us some
investigation
background on
was.
where you got these. Okay.
Well, we were asked to look at this restaurant in Manchester. So Willie and Jim did a walkthrough first, and then Willie and I came at a second date. And I really didn't get a feeling for much of anything in most of the restaurant except down cellar in what was the furnace room, and the second room was like a bathroom. And where would you like to go from there?
Okay, well, let's see. We went back and we did an investigation. It was just you and me. Jim wasn't there that night, right?
That night. We got this particular EVP, yeah.
Yeah, and what it was, this was downstairs in the furnace room, and it was Lynn and myself and the owner's daughter came down with us, and we were doing EVP session. And the way we were standing, Lynn had her back to the door into a little hallway which led into the main basement, and she just moved for some reason, just a little movement, which caught my eye, and I looked over. So this wasn't out of the corner of my eye, this was direct. I saw out in the main part of the basement, I saw a shadow figure walk by. And I said, wait, I just saw somebody walk by, So we all left the furnace room and went down to the other end of the basement, but I left the recorder running in the furnace room. It was in there by itself for about 45 minutes by the time we finally came back. And basically all through that time when there was nobody in there, you can hear movement. And I got 3 things here. Hopefully you'll be able to hear them all right. And the first part of it is, we think it's the ripping of duct tape. It's exactly what it sounds like.
Let me just preface that with the furnace room and this bathroom just gave me the creeps. They were both dark, heavy feeling rooms.
Mm-hmm.
And
yeah, we run into that sometimes.
So while we were gone, this kind of verified my feelings.
Yeah, and we also think there was mob activity in the building back in the past.
There was mob was involved there.
But anyways,
the mob.
MOB, yeah.
Wow, okay.
Yeah.
This clip that I have is actually like 1 minute and 10 seconds long. And in that time, there are 3 different EVPs that I want to play. So we'll do them separately. But the first one, like I say, is a ripping. It sounds to us like duct tape. And let me know if this comes across all right here. I'll play it over a couple of times.
Okay. Okay.
Is it coming across, Ben? Or?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. You look like you're in it.
Doctor, I would say more feet scraping on a cellar floor.
Think so?
No, it's your EVP.
Well, I mean that's what we thought. You know,
yeah.
some sort of ripping sound.
Yeah. Oh, certainly.
And we think duct tape.
Okay.
And just gonna unplug for a minute.
Well, a handyman's secret weapon.
That's true. It was used in World War II to keep car parts together. And
you wrote those times down. Was it 30 seconds?
10, 30, and 110.
Okay.
Okay.
So the next one is a female, just kind of humming. It isn't real loud, but I think you'll be able to hear it all right.
Okay. Flat, but everybody's a critic, right? Yeah,
of course. So that was in the same session, and this is the one that we all find very.
This last one is the most disturbing.
Okay, I know. I'm just
okay.
I don't want.
Right.
Yeah. It's a female voice. She sounds very distraught, and like she's crying, and. Well, we'll tell you after what we think it says.
Okay.
But it's a full sentence, and then if you listen very closely afterwards, is a reply from a young child.
Interesting.
So.
Okay. Sounds like a young woman crying. Very clear.
What do you?
I have a very clear voice. I can't understand the.
Can't quite understand what it says.
Yeah. What do you think it says?
Well, the consensus is that the woman says, "I didn't slit you there," as in cut, and the child says, "I know."
Interesting, but pretty much a bit disconcerting, but still something that might come up in day-to-day conversation.
Perhaps it just seemed
emotional enough.
Very emotional, and it fit in with the
yeah.
feeling of the room. It was just very somber.
I mean, we think, when you put it in the feeling of the room and the former mob connections, and what we think is the duct tape, and then the woman saying that, what happened down there? Is
definite
is
possibility.
what we're wondering.
Sure.
Something.
Sometimes, though, there seem to be random electronic voice phenomena.
Yes.
The first one I ever got, and I just sort of did it on a hunch. It wasn't well known then or very popular, and it was back in the mid-'70s, and it was a house in Manchester, Connecticut. And I had an old reel-to-reel tape recorder. I wish I'd transferred it. It's long, deteriorated, turned into nothing. I left the house, and the family did too. And they said they always felt there were people in the house. Mm-hmm. And I put the thing on the stairs, pushed the record and the play button, which you had to do back then, right? And I came back several hours later, and it recorded a dinner apparently going on with metal utensils and plates and people burping, because that was not considered rude in various places in the 18th century. This was a very, very old house, and it was nothing emotional. People were laughing, and
so
there had been nobody in that house.
It didn't sound contemporary then.
No, not at all.
Really?
No. Although people do that at meals now, I suppose.
Just the conversation and what was going on.
I really couldn't make out what was being said, but the accents and occasional word here and there, it didn't sound contemporary at all. Not even for the 1970s. So that was my first kind of experience with that, and I've been trying to figure it out ever since. And now and then things will come across. And since we're speaking of this, did you ever figure out what that male voice was that came across on your show?
No.
When Ben and I, and Bill Hall, and Shane were
Did you hear that,
last
Ben?
week.
No.
You didn't hear it, Ben?
Yeah,
you heard it, Paul, right?
I believe I did, yeah.
Paul, Willie, and me, we all heard it.
Bill says he didn't hear it. Shane, we don't know. We
haven't heard from Shane. And I did want to try to get some exact wording, but we can't find it on the recording, and I don't recall what it said.
And it came through the headphones, right?
Yeah, I think so.
Yes.
Yeah.
I know. Well, I definitely heard it, and I know Lynn reacted, and I saw you react.
And I think it was at the point that we were talking about the military base.
Yes, somehow that tends to happen. Now, whether it was anything, but you run a good show, a tight ship. People don't just all start talking at once. Same thing we try to do. Try to do the same thing here.
I feel like Shane and Bill were very calm.
Through
most of that, they're kind of hard to control.
Yeah. Hope they're not listening. But to have a voice come out like that without being in order or in answer to a question what struck me as very strange.
Besides the voice there.
There was nobody else in the building either besides us. But like I say, it came over the headphones. So it was.
And you were running the board, Willie, yourself. Yeah. As Ben does here.
What is your opinion of that, Paul? Do you think it was like a bug? Someone listening in, or do you think it was something from another dimension connecting with us? Well, it could have been just
one of those things that happens electronically, and there's really no way to tell. I look back to the shows we did, especially in the Rendlesham Forest case, which involved a lot of the military in 1980, UFO landings in Great Britain and all this. And we did the first two panels on CBS, brand new studio, professional engineers there out of WMC in Detroit, and nothing, all kinds of interference, people laughing in the background, guests dropping off, coming out, and hearing strange things in their own headphones wherever they were. We had to take it off and put it. There was an internet station that kind of owed us a little time, so we took the rest of the shows and put them on that after the second one, because it was complete chaos. People weren't getting the broadcast, and it was, so we had to take it off CBS and put it on this internet thing where we had far less trouble, and the podcasts are all available under special shows on Behind the Paranormal. But
that almost sounds like a multiverse situation, you know it?
I don't know what it was, but boy, it was very embarrassing and inconvenient. It was 3-hour specials. These were 3-hour specials.
But getting back to the house where you had the old recorder, and you had this old-fashioned dinner party.
That kind of knocked me sideways.
Don't you think that might have been a case of residual energy? Or not?
Well, I was one of the early advocates of residual energy, okay? But then when I discovered kind of the multiverse thing, if that's correct, I said, well, residual stuff isn't good enough. And the residual theory is you'll have events recorded on the environment somehow. But then my question was, recorded on what? if it's stones, I'm thinking too of areas in the middle that were abandoned villages that are now all overgrown. You have stone walls, but unless you have tremendous amounts of iron oxide in there, you're not going to have any kind of any way to record anything. The soil is all different. The trees are different. What's it recorded on?
Again, maybe the physical laws don't apply that we're aware of.
Maybe not.
That could be.
Could be. We really don't know. But I do tend to favor the time space intersect kind of thing than the residual, which it always struck me as, well, this is the best thing we can think of.
Yeah.
And there's no risk. So, but again, it could be wrong. I don't know.
I mean, that EVP that we just played, I would have to call that residual because, I mean, it wasn't interactive with anything.
Yeah.
There was nobody in the room.
Mm-hmm.
So
we had an interesting case right in York Beach, Maine, right within your domain up there. Went on for several years, and it was a campground that was all kinds of strange things, particularly the house where the managers lived. And they had been in northern Maine managing a resort. They had trouble there, and they came down to York Beach, and there was trouble there. We set, Ben, you were there when we did this. We set up the infrared camera, and the owner of the house and us downstairs, and we went upstairs and were very quiet and living. It sounded like Times Square down there. That the washing machine sounded like it was going, orbs here, orbs there, people walking around, people talking, and nobody was down there.
That guy in the corner or whatever that had.
And the guy in the corner
without his legs or something.
They had half a leg, and then they're standing there. And there was nobody standing there.
That was spooky.
And so you shared the picture with him. You had the video camera or something, but it was very interesting. So really, we don't necessarily know what causes these things. However, before we're burning up this hour, something first. So tell us once again about yourself, your show, website, and your group, any place people can find out more about you.
Okay, well, the group is Spirit Chasers Paranormal, and we're out of Hampton, New Hampshire, and the website is spiritchasersparanormal.com. And also on Saturday nights on that radio station up in Portsmouth, New Hampshire, 9 to 10 p.m., Spirit Radio, the Paranormal Experience with Lynn and myself. And the station website would be WSCA FM.org. And our show website is Spirit Radio, the Paranormal Experience.org. It's kind of a long one, I know.
Yeah.
But
podcasts and YouTube.
And yes, we are also
videos.
podcasting on Buzzsprout.com and iTunes,
Stitchers,
and a couple of others. And the shows are on YouTube.
You'll have to tell us, all our CBS shows are on iTunes, but not these. You'll have to tell us how to do that. I don't know. We have a tech person, but I don't know. We'll see.
Well,
so in any case, Lynn, you mentioned you might be working on a book.
Oh, yeah. I've been recording all of this stuff that happens to me, dreams, out-of-body experiences, warnings, strange synchronicities. So that's what I've been working on.
Okay.
And recording them all.
Consider yourself an empath?
I don't know. There's such a broad spectrum of experiences that I've had. So I like to think I'm just slightly sensitive.
Okay. Well, everybody's sensitive. It's a survival experience. It's part of our makeup. We wouldn't have gotten through the days of the mastodons if we didn't have some kind of sixth sense about something was going to look at us, wanting us to have us for lunch or something.
Well, I've had some odd things that are very difficult to explain, similar to what we've covered. One of them was I dreamt that I had an out-of-body experience. I visited a house. I flew around it, like you were talking about flying.
Yeah, we were talking before the show. Yeah.
Yes, and I flew in and out of the windows, and there were lilacs in front of this house. Well, I didn't find this house until a year later, and the house did exist. And when I did the comparison, trees had grown up. There were lilacs in the front of it. They had grown. And I dreamt that it overlooked a bluff on a river, and it did. Very odd. Why would I dream of this house? It had no relation to me.
Well, I know skeptics I know a lot of skeptics who would say that these experiences that you have and that I have and Ben and Willie or whoever are purely subjective. Purely within ourselves, and my first response might be, well, that doesn't mean they're not real.
Mm-hmm.
And secondly, when you have, as I experienced in psychiatric hospitals, one of the reasons I was there is to work with a priest. And when the patient is having all sorts of issues and things are flying off shelves across the room, that's objective, not subjective, you know. So what would you say to a skeptic who questioned your experiences in that way?
I haven't got much of an answer except that I know I experienced it. I had no cognitive evidence of it because I had never been there. I didn't discover this place. Actually, it's a little bit more than a year later until I drove around looking for a place to buy, a house to buy, and I found the house. I'd never been down that street. So how do you explain that?
Yeah.
Except a multidimensional thing, an out-of-body where it was there, but it was a different time zone. I mean, a different time frame, and it was like I was visiting someone else's memory.
Yeah.
I didn't feel that it was my house.
I think, like, you know, your question was the skeptics, right? I mean, this is something that happened to you, and you know it happened, but you can't prove it to anybody else. It's exactly the same thing as if you're investigating a place or something, and you get touched. It's a personal experience. You can't prove it, but you know it happened.
Well, we all have to be skeptics to a certain degree, but open-minded ones, you know.
Yeah, open-minded skeptics.
Well, it's like someone asked me a question at some convention once and was like, oh, well, blah, 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 blah. And I was like, well, who exactly are you trying to prove this stuff to? And she stood there and she thought for a moment, and she was like, you know, I don't really know. And I was like, if you're trying to prove this to science, it's not going to work. No, like there's no point. People have been trying to do it for decades.
The Lions couldn't do it. Nobody could.
Yeah, I mean, it's one of those things where it's either a communal experience or an individual experience.
Yeah.
And that's just what it is. We know empirically that we experience these things.
And we don't necessarily have an explanation for it.
And it's the root of the human experience.
And you know, you had asked about the past and the future of ghost hunting in the paranormal world.
Sure.
I really think that people are questioning and they're becoming more aware. I think more people in the future are going to become more aware. And I think what we become aware of is the science behind all of this activity. So I think eventually it will be explainable.
I don't know about that.
You don't think so?
I think that there will be... I think it might be explainable, but I think we're going to have to go beyond science. I mean, I've had scientists tell me this is outside of science.
It's outside of science as we know it. I think
we know it. That's
I think there's a different operating set of physical law.
That's right. That's right.
So I think science is going to become multidimensional, and we're going to grow in awareness to understand those principles that we're blindsided right now.
I think so, but I think part of that is going to have to be expanding our notion of what the big picture really is.
Absolutely.
Expanding our own boundaries of knowledge.
It's going to be an expansion of our awareness.
Our own paradigm and our own epistemology when it comes to that. Because,
that's right.
As I'm running into science, I have some dear friends who are scientists or married to scientists, and they the opinions are often very narrow. I think one of the things we suffer from as far as how we know what we know in Western society is that they're very specialized. Everyone is very specialized. You know, you go through your basic education, your core courses, and then you start to specialize in behaviorism or in astronomy or something, and you don't know about it really anything else very often. There are not enough classically educated, liberally educated, Renaissance people, I think, to balance the paradigm. And people see things only from their own perspectives, and a certain rather disconcerting kind of, for lack of a better term, stupidity can result from that, and lack of vision. And I don't mean to insult anyone, but...
Well, some people just don't care to learn it.
No, and they see things from their own point of view, and that's just about it.
And that's about it. It satisfies their world.
All that is the human experience. Every culture, every history, every race, every species, really, in the multiverse, knows about this. And maybe, as inept as some of those of us in this field may be, we're the real pioneers of human knowledge.
I have to agree with you.
You know? So now that we patted ourselves on the back...
I never thought of myself as a pioneer.
Oh, you are.
All I need is the hat, Willie. Okay. You know? Yeah. But in any case, tell us what you're working on right now.
Well, actually, we are
maybe
working on an ongoing investigation, at a place called the James House in Hampton, New Hampshire, which is it's like a living museum type of place. It's the James House Association, and we've been we're doing a 1-year exclusive investigation in there. We started last October.
Yeah, it'll be up in October. Maybe we can get it renewed.
Yeah, maybe we can get another year.
Renew the lease. Yeah.
We've come up with some interesting things in there.
There's been a myriad of
pieces
of evidence.
Different things from banging to being touched to EVPs and
of course
different smells and
the ubiquitous orb. But I still upstairs in the attic we got many, which I felt there's a lot of activity up there.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Okay. Well, that sounds interesting. Keep us posted on that. We talk all the time anyway, so that'll be quite interesting.
Yep.
As far as other people who are involved in this, whom you know, are you on the same page? In other words, we often find with groups, they'll try. We even had one or two on some of our early shows saying, "Oh, we want to prove this to science." Okay, but there's no discipline in thinking. And there's no peer review as is basic to any sort of academic activity or scientific activity. And, I mean, we all know what things in this field are not repeatable. But there has to be some sort of discipline.
I mean, is it necessary to have to prove it to science? Why can't we
I don't think so.
I don't think so either.
Do that.
I think it's really interesting, and it helps corroborate some of the feelings and personal experiences that people get. But it doesn't have to be proven by science. No. However, if you get the backup with the K2s and the recorder, I think that's great. And
but even that, I'm not out to prove anything to anybody except myself.
That's
where I started this, just my own curiosity. Yeah. I wanted to find out for myself. And so I'm not out to prove, well, this is the way things work.
It's a very intellectually honest answer.
And well, that's just the way it is. I mean, and in the process of doing some investigations and going in, if I can help somebody in the process, well, that's,
it's just
that's
icing on the cake.
Yeah,
I like that.
Exactly, icing on the cake. But that's, I'm not out to change the world. I'm just
very good. That's great. I hate to say it, but this is a great way to end our discussion. We're pretty much out of time. We have to do our announcements. But once again, why don't you give your website?
Okay, Spirit Chasers Paranormal.com. And for the radio show, it's Spirit Radio The Paranormal Experience.org. And that is on WSCA, which is WSCA FM.org.
And will you be speaking? Have any events coming up? We're hoping to see you at some of the UFO conferences up north.
Oh, we'll see you. I don't know. We don't have anything speaking coming up at the moment.
We've got a speaking UFO conference to go to in September, but that's still being formulated.
Right, but I mean, we're not speaking anywhere.
Yeah.
But
that one.
I forgot about that one. I'm sorry. Yes, we are.
So famous and in demand.
Yes, we are. We're speaking somewhere in September. I don't know.
Very good.
Alrighty.
Okay, Ben, take it away.
Okie doke. To kick off our announcements, on Saturday, September 5th, we're scheduled to speak once again at the Exeter UFO Festival in Exeter, New Hampshire. The townwide event is organized by the Kiwanis Club to benefit local children's charities, and other speakers include the great Stanton Friedman, along with Richard Dolan, Kathleen Martin, and Jennifer Stein, and we'll provide more information as the date approaches.
On Thursday, September 24th, we'll join Bill Hall, author of the forthcoming The Haunted House Diaries, which he's told us is dedicated to you and I, Ben. I thought that what a compliment.
Wow.
All right.
For a joint book event at Hank's Restaurant in Brooklyn, Connecticut. Hank's has great food, and it'll be a lot of fun. So come one, come all, and we'll fill the place just with our relatives from around there.
Yeah, probably. So on Saturday, October 10th, we'll once again be speaking at the Greater New England UFO Conference at City Hall in Leominster, Massachusetts. Other speakers will include Stan Friedman once again, Richard Dolan, Peter Robbins, and other UFO greats. And watch for more information on that and others coming up this year.
Actually, that might be. I'm not sure Stan's going to be there this year. We'll find out.
Well, whatever. We'll give you updates then.
Yes.
You can also visit our show website at BehindTheParanormal.com, where you can find nearly 600 free podcasts of all past shows. And that's from both ON 1240 and our 4.5-year run on CBS Radio, along with special shows and podcasts.
And you can find my books on Amazon.com, Amazon Kindle, Barnes & Noble Nook, the usual suspects. But if you buy them directly at BehindTheParanormal.com, I'll be happy to sign them for you, and you will help us keep all those podcasts free. Also on our website, you'll find direct links to several charities Ben and I have adopted, including USACares.org, Canadian Veterans Advocacy, Youth Mentoring Connection in Los Angeles, with Tony Loray out there doing amazing things for at-risk youth in that city, youthmentoring.org. There are 2 new books just released by Global Communication, Timothy Green Beckley's publishing company, that would be of interest to our local listeners. One is The Bell Witch Project, which contains the story, that story, of course, and also a few contributions by yours truly on historic paranormal cases here in New England, including the 17th century Spectre Leaguers of Massachusetts and the 18th and 19th century vampire hysteria, believe it or not, in Rhode Island and Connecticut. Of special interest to folks here on ON 1240 in our listening area is another Beckley book, UFO Repeaters, with an entire chapter on our old friend Joe Ferrier, talk show host on here on ON for over 50 years. Both of the books are available at Amazon.com or use the links at our online bookstore at our show website, BehindTheParanormal.com.
So next Monday, July 6th, so right after the Independence Day, we will welcome Aztec shaman Ruben Urtiua. I never knew how to pronounce his
He's a good friend of yours. I don't know how to pronounce his name. Well, I don't know. He's going to be here.
He will be here for a conversation to talk about shamanism and being a shaman and all that entails.
We leave you this evening with a quote from the Dalai Lama. Our prime purpose in life is to help others. If you can't help them, at least don't hurt them. I'm Paul Eno.
And I'm Ben Eno, and thanks for joining us on our great cosmic journey, and we shall see you next time.
Return to this radio frequency 167 hours from now for another edition of Behind the Paranormal with Paul and Ben Eno.